Hello, everyone, and a big warm welcome. My name is Warren, and I'm going to take you through the session today. So thank you all for coming along and taking some time out of your day to have a look at the CAS 360 new features. Hopefully you can hear me loud and clear, first and foremost, and see me. But also, hopefully you can see my screen. If you cannot, please let us know via the chat and the Q&A, and we will do everything we can to get everything up and running for you. But hopefully everything is coming through loud and clear. So what I'm going to cover off in today's session is I'm going to talk about all of the new features that we released in the July and August 2022 updates for CAS 360. As always, the session is recorded. What will happen is you will get an email in the next few days with a link to the session. Even if you missed the email, all of the recorded sessions are put on the community and also on YouTube. So you'll be able to watch them in your own time, which I'm sure you're very excited about. So what I'm going to cover off, as I mentioned, was the new features. But before I start that, I'm going to talk about two very important points that relate to the work that we all do. And that is, the first one is going to be the ABRS and the MBR project. So for those that don't know, the ABRS is the Australian Business Registry Service, and the MBR project is the Modernising Business Register project. So we obviously all lodge to ASIC today. That is essentially, that part of ASIC is ran by the ABRS. And the MBR project is effectively the new register that we are all going to be using soon, but not too soon, unfortunately. So you may have seen that the Modernising Business Register project was in the media, and that's a bit odd for us. I'm very proud of our little registry industry. However, we don't tend to get too much press. Unfortunately, it wasn't very good press. So it was in the media recently as the change of government came in, that the Modernising Business Register project was significantly over budget. Some reports suggested close to $1 billion over budget, which is not ideal. So there's been a fair bit of, I suppose, reviewing going on of the project. So I just wanted to convey that to everyone. There has been some leadership changes within the MBR or the MBR project and the ABRS in general. So there's been some leadership changes there and some changes in personnel. The most, I suppose, important thing is that the planned release for 2023 has been delayed, which is unfortunate. It means that we will be stuck using the 30-year plus old ASIC register system for at least another 2 years, because the planned release of the new registry system, which was initially planned for October 2022, was moved to September 2023. It's not going to hit either of those deadlines. It has been delayed. I anticipate somewhere between 2024 and 2026, but won't rule out the end of time as well. No, I'm only joking. It has been delayed a little bit, and we will find out more information about the delay later this year. I'm hoping that by the end of this year, we will have a new timeline. But at the very earliest, I believe it will be 2024 at the very, very earliest, and could be even beyond that. So that's a bit of an update on the MBR project. Look, BGL and myself personally are working with the ABRS on this. It is a very big project, but at the moment, as you can see, it is running behind and obviously still requires a fair bit of work for it to be completed. So I'll keep you updated as much as I can, but we will see how we go with this project. Question I've got here is, does that mean Director ID deadline has been moved? Well, I will tell you, but the answer is no. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is Director ID, and give you a bit of an update on the Director ID project. So initially, the Director ID was the first part of the Modernising Business Register, and there has been obviously a release of the Director ID, and that's been out there for a while now. Obviously, the whole plan was to have Director IDs by the end of November and then turn on the new register and link them all together. Obviously, that's not going to happen. However, that has not changed any of the deadlines in relation to Director ID. all directors, as I've got there in point 2, and I need to be very clear here, all directors must have a director ID by the 30th of November 2022. That is the deadline. So every single company director must have identified themselves through MyGov ID by November 2022. So that's fast approaching. So currently there are 800,000 issued director IDs, and hopefully you've been able to use the CAS 360 features to try to get some of those director IDs done by your clients, because your clients do have to do them. If you are still struggling with director ID, I strongly encourage you to go to the community, the BGL community, and have a look at some of the director ID webinars that we've done there. There's 2 that we have done now that I suppose are about an hour long, each going through a fair bit of information around those director IDs. So including all the director ID workflows and how to start using the CAS 360 director ID sort of features. To give you an update, the ABRS are sending out letters to directors that have been appointed outside of, since the new terms came in. So just so you all know, from the date I might be wrong on the date, but I think it was around mid-April. By mid-April, you had to have a director ID before you could be newly appointed. Okay, so newly appointed. If you were an existing director on the 30th of October 2021, you have until the 30th of November 2022. But if the person has been appointed as a director for the first time, sort of since the 1st of April, they may have received a nice letter from the ABRS telling them that they need to complete their director ID, right? So they do need to do that for those, and everyone's going to need to do it by the 30th of November. Now, I put here big penalties apply. Unfortunately, the way the legislation was written is that there isn't a flat fee, like a late fee for director ID. A lot of this, in fact, needs to go through the courts. So the APRS would need to take the director to court, essentially. There is a maximum penalty of $13,000, which is quite a lot of money. So I certainly encourage you to, help your customers out for those that haven't got director IDs. I'm not sure what will be done post November 30. It hasn't been advised to us if there's going to be any extension or crackdown. We are working on the assumption that the deadline still sits at November 30, 2022. We haven't been told anything otherwise. So I'm not sure. I know there's a couple of questions about saying if there's going to be anything issued. As I said, the penalty is legislated as up to 13,000. So that is potentially where that will all go. Director ID always engulfs the Q&A, so I'll do my best to answer some of these questions. Is there any word on middle names with director IDs? Is there an issue with MyGov and middle names? This will cause an issue with linking in the future. Look, I know that there's going to be a lot of questions about linking. I guess the short answer is we've still got 2 years to work it out, or the ABRS still has 2 years to work it out. But what I will say in principle is that the director ID will essentially supersede the name. So the director ID number becomes the most critical point of the ABRS's identifying of that director. So what will happen is everything will then be linked to that director ID number, and what is linked to that director ID number will then sort of flow down. So in terms of middle names, names and things like that, where there's slight discrepancies, I would say that the name that is on the director ID would potentially supersede any name that is on the register, because they have the ID number has the official verified with source documents name, whereas the existing name is just a free text field. So yeah, hopefully that explains a fair bit of it. I'm running on these assumptions. The official answers haven't been provided yet, and I don't think they will be provided for a while. What about those clients that have diminished comprehension and things like that? I think that the answer would be to follow up that question with ABRS. It's certainly not something I'm able to give you a qualified answer on. Can you please confirm if even if a director resigns before November 2022, if they were director as of October 31st, they still need to apply for a director ID? Michelle, I think the short answer there is no, they don't. If they're not going to be a director after the 30th of November of any company, they won't necessarily need a director ID. They will need an ID if they wish to commence being a director post that date. Okay, so the way I read it is that if they're going to resign, if they were a director on 31st October 2021 and they're going to resign before 30th of November 2022, before the deadline, then in theory they don't need a director ID. Yeah, that answer. There's a couple of questions in the chat that sort of follow up and back that answer. Questions about fixing up discrepancies. Look, my first answer is always try to make sure your database is as clean as possible. That's the starting point. Where you've got sort of 1 or 2 letter discrepancies and things like that, the director ID will, when the new company's register comes in, will resolve that. The problem is we're going to be waiting at least 2 years for that. So that's, I suppose, where the issue comes in. If we were waiting 6 months, then I'd probably say you could wait, but 2 years is a long time. A lot changes in 2 years, including release dates. What about marriage, divorce, official changes, names, things like that? Again, look, some of these things are obviously going to be case-by-case basis, so it's very hard to answer all of the questions here. The ATO said at a webinar last week that they did not have to get director IDs if they were no longer a director. That's correct, Lauren. That's correct to my understanding. If they intend on not being a director, then they don't need to have a director ID. So hopefully that helps answer that question there. If a company's in strike-off process with ASIC after November 30, does the director still need to apply for an ID? If they are, the rule should be if they're an active director post November 30, then they should get an ID. Simple as that. They did have to get a director ID. Look, if they're not a director, they don't need a director ID. Simple as that. A lot of questions coming through about director IDs. Probably gone on a little bit longer. I can answer a couple of these questions at the end, or Andy will jump on them in the chat. Let's get into the cool part, which is the CAS new features. So I'll just change my screen over here. Okay, hopefully you can now all see CAS 360 up on your screen, which is what we come here for. There's a lot of questions about director ID, and I will do as much as answer as many of those questions at the end as I possibly can. So let's have a look at the new features that we released in July 2022. So as always, the features I'm showing you are not features that are gonna happen. They're features that we have released that are live in the product in your hands today. Okay, so everything I show you today is live. None of it's coming, it's all been released. So the first feature I'm going to talk about is that the document preparer can now add notes when sending a document for review. So this is available in every single document production. So every document that you prepare, you have this feature now. So if I go to my company, go to something like my officer's screen, and I'm just going to appoint myself as a director here. Click on prepare form. And what you'll see is in the document production screen, you've still got the flag documents to be reviewed. When you toggle that on, you've got a new button here called add notes to the reviewer. So here you're able to add a note in to the reviewer so that when the reviewer is obviously reviewing the documents, this note actually sits above the document pack. So you are able to provide a bit of extra context or communication in relation to the document pack that you are providing as part of that review. So for a while, the reviewer's been able to write notes, but not the preparer. So now the preparer can provide notes when sending those reviews across. So hopefully that helps a few of you out. It certainly was wish listed a fair bit and requested a fair bit. The next feature I'm going to talk about, and we've got a couple of features based on this feature because it was a rather big change, and it has to do with non-share member companies. So obviously the bulk of the companies are limited by share companies. We did have a little bit of a gap though in CAS 360 when it came to non-share member companies. So what we did is we had a huge project where we added all of the functionality required for these non-share member companies. So these are your limited by guarantee companies. So if you were storing them in CAS 360, you probably weren't able to do everything that you wanted to. Now we've really closed that gap. So if I go over to my non-share member company, so my limited by guarantee company, and where this all kicks off is in the company status. So the limited by guarantee is there, as you can see. So this company is a limited by guarantee company. Now, when the company is set as a limited by guarantee company, that changes the rest of the application or the rest of the company record, in particular around the members. So instead of having shareholders, we have members because they're guarantors. They don't hold shares, they just hold a guarantee. So what we did is we've completely rewritten or written a specific process for this. So if I go to add member, what I've got here is a new add member screen. So it's not adding a share transaction, it's just adding that member in. I can select myself and then I enter in a guarantee amount. I still can get a certificate and everything like that. I click save and that will add the guarantee or the guarantor to the company. All right, so you can see here they're a guarantor for the company. I can still go through the process here of preparing a register of members, okay, and also a cover letter. So you've got the documents there, but you've got your guarantee that is listed. Now, I'm going to go through a little bit more features that we've added for limited by guarantee companies coming up, but that's obviously the first one is being able to select and add in those guarantor members. All right, see if there's any questions coming through. Okay, good. Let's move on. So the next feature I've got here is a global setting to CC or BCC partner and manager contacts when sending documents out. So this is in your settings screen, in your email settings. And inside here, what we have is a BCC and CC. So what you're able to do is obviously put in a default BCC or CC address, and this will be on every email. What you're also able to do is CC partner contacts and CC manager contacts. So these are the contacts that are already attached to that company. And if you toggle these options on, so say, for example, BCC partner contacts and hit save, now every time you send an email out to a client, you can choose to BCC the partner in, right? And that will be there by default. And obviously it depends on the partner contact that you have inside the company. So if I go to my company here, I can add in a partner contact. And that means that that partner will now be BCC'd in every email for that company, right? So you're able to utilize that as a way of including in the partner per company. So it's dynamic. If that's certainly something that the partners would want is to be included in those emails. So you can do that now, which is nice. The next two features have to do with user permissions. So we've got a fair bit of requests around user permissions, and I know that company level access remains a big one. We haven't got that one yet, but we did add a couple of extra user permissions in this update. So if I go into, and if those that don't know, this is how you set up user permissions. Now you do have to have admin rights to do this. So if you click on the app switcher and then click on users, up will come your My BGL screen. And what you're able to do is go into your role settings, select your favorite BGL product, which is CAS 360. And what you've got here is now the ability to add and edit email templates and add and edit document templates. So if those are turned off, then the user won't be able to add and edit those templates, okay? But if you want them to be that particular person to be able to do it, then obviously you can. So a bit of flexibility around those particular user roles. For those that weren't aware about this screen or this particular feature and functionality, you certainly can toggle things on like lodgement as well if you want to block lodgement from certain users, as well as things like dividends and distributions, all of those sorts of things. So we've added two more to those user permissions, but I think that you'll see more user permission advances in the future. All right, let's move on to the next feature, which is a new document naming convention. So some of you may have seen this already, but what we did is we updated the way that we name documents when you prepare them in CAS 360. So if I was to go and prepare my form, Now, the annual return or the annual review does have its own naming convention, which includes the year. We felt that the year was really important. But if I go to just prepare my forms here, the best way to show this is by downloading the documents. Okay, but the name convention does stay the same the whole way through. But what you'll see is that the name is the name of the document is, and up in the top here, you'll be able to see it. But you'll be able to see that it is the company name dash form 484 dash the trace number. So what we've tried to do here is really make it a consistent name so that you can build automation on top of that name, but also you've got a very clear example of, or a very clear description of what is inside that document pack. When it comes to the annual review, it actually has, as I mentioned earlier, has the year before the document name annual review. So if you were exporting it out to PDF, it would say Masterclass 2022 PTY Ltd in brackets 2022 annual review. So we've really tried to improve the naming convention so that it is a little bit cleaner and very easy to understand. Couple of questions about, can you show us an example? I'm not sure if of editing the templates. I can show you an example of editing the templates at the end. There's a fair bit of features to go through before I get to that one. Is there a way that we can change it so that the form name is first, then the company name? Julie, at the moment, we control that. We don't make it the setting available, but I'll see what we can do. But for now, no, it will always be the company name, then the form. For now, anyway. The last feature I'll talk about as part of the core for July was the ability to upload multiple files at once to a document production. So if I go into the prepare forms section, we've always got the ability to upload additional documents as part of a document pack. So you've got the upload button that you've always been able to click. Now what you're able to do is you've been able to drag and drop. I think we added that earlier this year, drag and drop documents into the document production, but you could only do one. Now you can do multiple. So now you're able to attach multiple documents at once to any document production screen. So we obviously removed that limitation there. And now let's move on to the, so that's the core feature set. That's the feature set that was available for every jurisdiction. So now we'll have a look at the Australian specific features for July. And the first one is to do with our favorite topic, Director ID. So we've got two Director ID new features here. And again, you will have seen them. They're all part of the officer transaction flow. So if I go to now appoint a new officer, right? There's two features in this particular process. So the first one you can see here is if the Director ID has not been added as part of the officer appointment, you'll have the ability to click on add it here and add that Director ID in, okay? So the system will now automatically tell you that no Director ID has been entered, and you can click on add it here. So this feature has obviously been in the release since July, the product since July. It's not a hard validation, and obviously the reason for it not being a hard validation is that 30th of November deadline. I would say that post 30th of November, this would become a hard validation, right? So when you are adding in those directors, we will be requiring a Director ID. Okay, and that's really just to help with the record keeping and things like that. It is not mandatory yet. You can still be a director without a Director ID if you meet the criteria today, but post 30th of November, I think that it will get a little bit stricter. The other feature that we added here is if I was to add a new person in here, inside the new contact process, you now have the ability to add that Director ID in as well. One thing that I would strongly recommend is whenever you are appointing a director from now on, make sure that the Director ID is in all of your collection forms that you are using or in your email template that you are requesting. I would go as far as to say, don't appoint anyone as a director unless they've got their Director ID. I would be quite strictly putting that back onto the client and making sure that they have their Director ID. Because what will end up happening, unfortunately, and I think we all know what's going to happen, is that the director will get chased up and they'll come to you and say, why didn't you tell me? So I would strongly be encouraging anytime you're appointing a director, get the Director ID. Make sure that client provides it. Make it as if it's a name, date of birth, address, sort of a mandatory bit of information. I certainly would be strongly encouraging that for all director appointments. I'll check a couple of questions here. Question here, can the font size not be uppercase? Yes, it can. Please let us know, and we can change your case from uppercase to lowercase. We're sending out documents through DocuSign. Can we add a CC and BCC? Yes, you can. You always can do that, and you can add it through the automated process that we've added in here. Being able to change the naming convention would save us time. Okay, Erin, thank you for that. It's two that want to change the naming convention. We'll see what we can do. For annual review, can we add an electronic signature to the ASIC invoice? We've got a feature for the invoice coming soon, Paul, and I think it'd be very welcomed. We get a lot of feedback about the splitting of the ASIC invoice, and I think we're going to make all of your dreams come true, but that won't be until October. Sorry. We have placed the details in our company, and it does not show any details in the register of members. But I think that might be related to the non-share. If you could send that through, we'll have a bit of a look. Can director IDs be synchronized with Xero XPM? Unfortunately, Mark, the answer is no, because Xero don't provide us with an API for that. Please email Xero and ask them to provide us with an API, because we have, but it might mean more coming from a paying customer. Director ID report lists all directors. Yes, it does. I mean, I would just encourage you to use the Excel filters in the director ID report, and you'll be able to easily filter out the report so that it has only those directors that don't have a director ID. There's a request here about company debt reminders and the due date. The answer is we don't have a due date. We don't get the due date from ASIC, unfortunately, so we can't put a due date in. A couple of other questions that I will get to. Can you apply for a director ID within CAS 360? The answer is no. Certainly, I argued very long and hard for it to be in the product, but I was told no by the ATO. All right, let's move on. I talked a bit about non-share member companies, and the next feature I'm going to show you is company registrations for non-share member companies. So obviously you can have all of your non-share member companies in CAS 360. You can also register with ASIC a non-share member company from within CAS 360. So hopefully everyone knows by now that you can lodge company registrations in CAS 360. Every single account or every single client can lodge company registrations with ASIC from CAS 360. There are no restrictions, okay? All that you need to have is a direct debit account with ASIC. If you have a direct debit account with ASIC, you can lodge company registrations in CAS 360, and you are lodging them for just the ASIC fee, okay? So let me get that, make sure that one's all clear. What we have added as part of this particular update is the ability for you to now register in Australia, now register unlimited companies. Okay, so you can now select company class unlimited, and you can go through the process of preparing the forms and lodging that electronically with ASIC and getting your company registration certificate. Okay, so CAS 360 handles that whole workflow. It will change the shareholder section to members and things like that. So, so you can go through and put that particular data in. But all of those non-share member companies can be registered, okay? And as part of that particular process, we will prepare the full document pack for that company registration as well. So your pre-incorp docs with your cover letter, your Form 201, your consent to act, your director ID letters, a new application for membership. So instead of application for shares, we have an application for membership. And obviously your occupiers consent if required. And our post-incorp docs will have the Form 362, the certificate of registration, the constitution if you have a template that you've uploaded, the first directors meeting minutes, the declaration the company hasn't traded, your register of officers, your members certificates, and your register of members limited by guarantee. So you get a full document pack there for that particular company registration. So I know that there was a fair few clients that really wanted that, the non-share member feature set. So we're very happy to have delivered that. All right, moving on. There's a lot of questions. Hopefully Andy's very busy with those questions. I will try to get to them. I will get to them all at the end. So your question will get answered. Change of name of holding company. So this is a big feature that we added through our multi-company processes. So sometimes certain changes fell through the gaps. And one of those was the change of name of holding company. Obviously, inside a company, you can add the holding company, you can remove the holding company. Now you can change the name of the holding company. And this is done through the multi-company changes screen. And the reason it's through this process is because then we can pick up any other attachments to that particular entity or contact, sorry. So if I click on new change and I click contact name change, I select my holding company and just change the name here and click proceed. So just like every other multi-company process, CAS 360 now goes through your whole application to try to find where Mooney Investments is attached. And as we can see in the first company, Mooney Investments is a current shareholder. So we will prepare the form 484 to change the name of that shareholder. But for Masterclass 2022, Mooney Investments is a holding company, right? So what we will now have is the 484 that will include the holding company name change as well. So obviously it may also be a shareholder. This is probably not a great example, but it will also be a shareholder of that company, or could be, not will be, but could be. And that will come up. Then what will happen is you'll have a 484 that has both of those transactions. So what you'll see here is we've got support for both the shareholder name change and the holding company name change where required. All right, a couple of questions here. Have you made a change available yet? It's to change the address for entities that haven't been reported to ASIC EG trusts. Liliana, I'll just check on that. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think we have, but there's a few questions there. As I said, I will get to all the questions at the end. I'll keep going through the features as we go. The next feature is the ability to register a company via ClearDocs. So in CAS 360, we've obviously got integrations with a lot of document providers, and they certainly are great partners of ours. And we support Access and ClearDocs, Lightyear Docs, Smarter SMSF. There's a few others that we support as well through our API. What we've added is also now the ability to register via a provider from inside the product. And this is really for those firms that perhaps have a smaller number of company registrations. Maybe you're doing, a handful a year, and you're not really doing enough to go and justify an account with some of these providers, right? So an ongoing sort of monthly subscription with these providers because the registrations are a bit more ad hoc. So in CAS 360, we have a buy constitution where you can buy the constitution for those companies. But what we've added in the last update is the ability to link straight through to a provider. So go straight to ClearDocs here, click on proceed, and you can register the company from here. So you can go through that process and use ClearDocs to do all the registration rather than CAS 360. Once you've completed the registration, the company will come back into CAS 360. So you'll have all of your company data there, as well as the company documents or the registration pack. So just a number of ways that we're trying to allow you to register companies, and certainly for different cases, for different, I suppose, different needs. You will also see a register via provider coming to trusts in the next update. The next feature I'm going to talk about is the ASIC form signatory on agent forms. And this is a hot topic. We actually released a feature in each of July and August. So I'll cover them both now to explain what we've done. So what this does is this relates to the agent signatory that appears on forms. So I'll show you how this looks. So if I just go to prepare, again, my same officer form. When I have a look at my form 484, on the first page, we have an agent signatory, right? So the contact person here. Okay, so it all relates to this particular bit of information. So in CAS for a long time, we've had just one person. So you just put one contact in there. That's the person that's attached to the agent record in the contact screen. But what we wanted to do, and what we got a lot of feedback on, was about making it dynamic, right? So dynamic based on the partner that was attached to that company. So the change that we made was that if the company had a partner, we would show a partner contact attached. We would show the partner contact in that agent contact person field. So we added that and we released that in July. We got a lot of feedback about that, some very happy, some not very happy. So what we did is in the August update is we released a new feature where you can actually have a toggle and you can control that. So this toggle is what controls that. So if you want the dynamic partner name to appear on the form, make sure it's toggled on. And just so you know, everyone, it's toggled on by default. And if you want the static contact person attached to the agent record or the default signature, turn that off. Okay, so that's how it works. So you do now have flexibility over the contact person that appears on those forms. Okay, so we've added that in. Sometimes we don't get it right the first time. All right, let's go. The next feature I'm going to talk about, just on the annual review cover letter. For those that don't know, the annual review cover letter is by far the most customized document in CAS 360. And it's great to see so many firms putting in their cover letter. So here's an example of one of my dodgy looking cover letters, but there you go. What we have added in this update is we've added 2 more merge fields. So we've always had the ability to show the outstanding balance merge field in this particular cover letter. What we have added now is a merge field for the first late penalty and the second late penalty. So these are in the release notes, the actual merge field. The advantages of adding those late penalties in as merge fields is that they will change when they change. So the late penalty obviously changes every year with CPI. Got quite a big bump this year. But what will happen is that late penalty information will be dynamic. So if some of you have typed in what the penalties are, so put in the dollar amount, you can now put in the merge fields and they will be automatically updated on the 30th of June every year. So those new merge fields are added. If you are not using an annual review cover letter, please put your annual review cover letter into CAS 360. It will save you a lot of time when sending out those packs, and you can even put in a nice looking signature at the bottom. All right, moving on. The next item I'm going to talk about is the director ID number formatting. So again, we released a feature in each update relating to the director ID number formatting, but I think we've got it right now. If I go and have a look at my director ID, we'll go to add a director ID. So if I go professional IDs, no, wrong one, contact identification, you will now have the official ABRS number formatting, which is what, 3552, something like that. We did put it in as 3333, which is the same as the tax file number and the ACN, but apparently this is the correct number formatting. So we've now got the correct number formatting anyway around that. And obviously we'll validate that number based on the algorithm, because the ABRS have given us that algorithm as well. 2 minor features that we added, or the last 2 minor features that we added to this particular release. One was around the debt, so being able to clear the debt manually. So you are able to click on refresh balance and also clear the debt, okay, and it will be refreshed when you do that. And if I go to in my company report, what we did in the company report, I won't show this one, but we did just fix up some of the issued, or made some improvements to the issued capital section of the company report. I think it was out of alignment a little bit, so we've fixed that up as well. All right, let's move over to August, because we've got 20 odd minutes left, but we've got some crazy new features that we released in August. And none more important than our flagship feature for our August release, which was the automatic document reminders. So some of you may remember, I know that there's about 500 firms that have the automatic debt reminders turned on, which is great. But we released automatic debt reminders back in March, and in the August update, we released automatic document reminders. So I'll show you how these work. So if you go into your settings, you've got automated reminders, and you've obviously got 2 types here, ASIC debt reminder and document reminder. So these are obviously very big features. They take us to a next level of automation, really, because these are set and forget reminders. You don't need to even log in to CAS 360 now for the reminders to be sent out to your client. You can set them up and send them out all while you're sleeping. So inside the debt reminders, I won't cover it too much, but you can, based on your ASIC debt report, have automatic reminders sent out. And if you want to have a look at the May webinar that I did, I go through that in a lot more detail. This particular update, or the August update, sorry, we released the automatic document reminders. So this is jurisdiction specific, and there's 3 types of document reminders. So here we go, and I'll explain how they work. So the first reminder type is a document deadline, and this is the regulator forms, right? So these are all of the documents that have a specific deadline date, right? So think your 484, for example, which has a deadline date. Now, when you toggle this on, you get a process here where you can add in up to 6 reminders for each form. So I'll click on Add Reminder. What I'm able to do is select when that reminder is going to be sent. So let's say I want it 20 days at 11, let's go 11, let's go 9:56 a.m. Make it look like we're working hard. And I can send it via email or SMS or both. Select my email reminder template. So here I've got a digital signing reminder template, which will have a link. So if you're using digital signing, use this one. If you're not using digital signing, just use the document deadline reminder template. So you can customize those and hit save. What that means is now 20 days before the deadline at 9:56 a.m., CAS 360 will send a reminder to the client. Then we can get a little bit more annoying. So I can go and put one in for 15 days before the deadline. And then I can set another one up for 10 days before the deadline. And another one 7 days before the deadline. You sort of get the point, right? What we're able to do is set up all of these reminders to go out closer and closer to the deadline, so that the client is being reminded as many times as possible about the deadline, right? So what you've got here is that process of sending those reminders out. Now, it will automatically align properly, but you'll see here that the client is now getting reminded 20 days out, 15 days out, 10 days out, 7 days out, 4 days out, and 1 day out. As I said, it'll all reorganize in the next refresh. Now, what you can also do is click the sender, click the send to. So the send to is important because you've got your signing contact and company directors, or the company directors. However, if you are using digital signing, what will happen is you always send the reminder to the signer, okay? So digital signing reminders are obviously specific for the signer. The Q&A is going nuts, so I'll get to them. But yeah, you can sort of customize who they're being sent to. Attach documents, and then the big one, applies to. And this is where you can select which companies via the labels it will apply to. So you can choose which companies you are going to apply this to. I'm going to select all. And now I hit save, and that is done, right? So those reminders have now been set up, right? And away we go. The next thing we can do is set up the exact same for our annual reviews. So obviously the annual review has 60 days, not 28 days. And what you're able to do is then set up that process for the annual review starting at 30 days. So the exact same process applies, but what you are then able to do is set up all of your document deadline reminders and all of your annual review reminders, and the system will send them out all automatically. The other tab is for other reminders. Now, the document deadline and the annual review reminders are based solely on the due date. We know a due date for those documents, so all of the logic is aligned to match that due date. Where a document does not have a due date, okay, maybe a dividend statement or a trust distribution, something like that, where there is no specified due date, these fall into other reminders. And with the other reminder, the logic is flipped somewhat, where the reminder is now after preparation, days after preparation. So the other reminders just has a slightly different bit of logic. Because we don't have a due date, we just have a days after preparation. So again, I can put in 14 days after preparation. We're going to send a reminder followed by 24 days after preparation. So what you'll have here is essentially the ability there for you to set up those reminders based on the after preparation date. All right, give me a second. I'll have a look at this Q&A because it's going crazy. All right, here we go. All right, let me just get back here. All right. I love the automatic document reminders. Thank you. It's very nice. Automatic document reminders sent to client seems to trigger when emails are sent to reviewer, not when reviewer sends to the client. I'd have to check on that, Mark. It should be when the reminders are based on deadline, right? So it does depend on the deadline of those reminders. But if the document hasn't been sent, it's for review, then yes, that does play a part, but it's all based on the deadline. So the logic is not as in if it's 5 days from when they received their last email. In my example, you can see on the screen, if I prepared the document 22 days before the deadline, they would get a reminder in 2 days' time. Not because they haven't had it, but it's because we've told the system to send the reminder 20 days before the deadline. Can you send the reminder the document is originally sent to? Yeah, so I guess it depends on, there's a few factors here. When it comes to the reminder, if you're using digital signing, that's exactly how it works. If you're using digital signing, the way that it works is that the reminders will be sent to the signers directly. When it comes to non-digital signing, you have 3 options. The signing contact, right? Now, what happens with the signing contact is when you send a document out for signing, you can add a signing contact. You literally have to click save, and it will save that company as the signing contact. That's probably the best example I can give you if you're not using digital signing. You've also got signing contact and all of the company directors. Now, I know you might not want to send it to all the company directors. That's where you would assign the signing contact. Hopefully that helps answer that question. Does it cost more to use the SMSF? It costs you more to use SMSF. If you use SMS functions, no, the SMS functions are free in CAS 360. Can you make the debt reminders as flexible as this? Yes, we're going to add the label filter to debt reminder soon, but we haven't yet. Does the reminder stop once the document has come back in? Great answer. The reminder stops when the document goes into a post-signed status, right? So again, with digital signing, the reminders obviously stop when all the documents have been signed. And with digital signing, the reminders only go to the people that haven't yet signed, right? They don't go to the people that have signed. So digital signing, again, has a great advantage because the advantage of digital signing is that we have visibility as a product. We can actually see who has signed and who hasn't. And I strongly recommend you have a look at some of the digital signing options that we have. Where you are not using digital signing, it is all based on document status. So I'll show you how this works. If I go to my document screen, over in document status, you'll see here the status here is signed by client. That is a post-signed status, right? Now, when you send the document to the client, the status is sent to client. If you export the document to PDF, the document is seen as prepared, doc prepared. Right, so these are both pre-signed status. So sent to client and document prepared are pre-signed. So the reminders will continue to be sent while they are at a pre-signed status. For the reminders to be stopped, we just need to either lodge the form, because that'll set it as lodged, or change it to signed by client. What that does is that tells the system that the documents are now being signed and the reminders automatically go away. Okay. So hopefully that helps explain it. Again, if you're using digital signing, it's much more automated. It's completely seamless. But if you are not using digital signing, then you do have to just tell the system that it's been signed, and then the reminders will all stop. All right. All right. Will clients get an automatic reminder if it is overdue? At the moment, no. We're trying to get them the reminders before it's overdue. So at the moment, we don't get to overdue reminders, I guess. Does other document reminder cover docs that have a due date but are not overdue? I would say other document reminders are really for non-regulator forms, Naomi. Would a Form 492 fall into the no due date category? Yes, it will, because a Form 492 has no specific due date. So good point there, question. I realize this is when you have directors who are attached to more than 100 companies. This process becomes time consuming if you could chase those by a company director. That would help. Let me have a look at that, Catherine. It's a good point. If you prepare a form 17 days before the deadline with the document reminder ignored the first in your example, yes, it will. Okay, so it will. If you CC the account managers, the original 484, are they included in the reminder? Ooh, you'd have to set up the default. Melissa, I'll have to look into you on that one. Look into it for you, that one. Great work on document reminders. Thank you. Can a billing contact be added to the document reminder? Good point. We'll see what we can do there. A lot of questions here. Can we stop the reminders when advised that ASIC payment has been scheduled? I guess there's a couple of things there. With the ASIC payment, you can't stop the reminders because we check every day, right? So if the debt reminder has been scheduled for in 3 days' time, for example, you can't stop the debt reminder because the debt reminder is essentially a day-to-day proposition. We don't know if debts are going to exist tomorrow, so we really have a sort of a blank canvas. When it comes to the, you can sort of trick the system by sending the reminder to yourself, but that probably defeats the purpose. For your document reminders, however, in your messages screen, you'll have a pending out box. And this is where you're able to see all your upcoming document deadline reminders, and you're also able to modify them as well. So your document deadline reminders, you can edit. A lot of questions coming through, very hard to answer them all. How do I set a default document reminder? Yeah, I was aware how to set it, but how do I set the default of what they actually say? Yeah, okay. So the document deadline reminders are based on email templates. So these are configured in your settings, your email templates. Select Australia, obviously, and go to document deadline reminder. So this one here. Document deadline reminder, and here is where the text is. So this is where you can customize that reminder. If you are using digital signing, please make sure you edit the digital signing document deadline reminder because they are different, right? The digital signing one has a link to the digital signing, whereas obviously the non-digital signing one doesn't. It basically refers to the documents being attached. All right, a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions on automatic reminders, but I've just got too much to go through, so I will cover them in about 10 minutes or so when I've gone through the rest of the features, because this next feature is a really good one as well. So there's a lot in, I suppose, in the industry news around verifying the identity of your customers. Now, this is actually a requirement, a legal requirement in both New Zealand and Singapore. CAS 360 is sold in New Zealand and Singapore. So we have implemented in our New Zealand version a whole identity and compliance workflow, and that will slowly be rolled out to Singapore and Australia. But what we have released for Australia is identity verification. So in your contact screen, and some of you may not have seen this feature before, but in your contact screen, if you find a particular contact, I'll look for myself here. Where am I? There we go. Inside that contact, we've obviously got all of the contact's information, but we have this compliance tab. So this tab called compliance. Inside this tab, we are able to add identity information. So I'm able to add in citizenship certificate, driver's license, passport, bank statements, and things like that. These are all for our identity verification. And if I've had a look at the person's driver's license, for example, I can put that data in. So you can see here, we've got some driver's license data entered in for myself. We've also got a section here where it was date it's cited and who cited it within the firm and some of their comments. So Andy has obviously cited my driver's license here and suggested that it looks a bit dodgy. All right, so if this happens, but also legitimate reasons, you can just verify the ID. What we've put in CAS 360 now is a verify identity button. So you can click on verify identity and up comes our new identity verification integration. So we have partnered with CloudCheck and we've got a few more providers coming on board soon, where you can now use CloudCheck to verify the identity document of that particular person. So if it's a driver's license or a passport, for example, go through CloudCheck and you can verify that it is a legitimate driver's license or a legitimate passport. not password, passport. So you can go through and do that. Now you do need an account with CloudCheck, okay? So you cannot just run the search. You do need to set up an account with CloudCheck and obviously have a subscription with them, but there will be more services coming on board soon, as I mentioned. And what you can do is click on select here and go through the process of verifying that particular person's identity and click proceed, right? Now, when you proceed, it's all really cool. It takes about 5 to 10 seconds and you get back the verification result. So if I have a look at the result's attached here, and click on my document here, and it will come up and it will tell me that the identity check has passed, or if Andy's suspicions were confirmed, that the identity check failed. So you are able to now verify the identity through a third party based on the data in CAS 360. The best thing is you don't have to rekey information. If you've got that data in CAS 360, you save it, it's saved against that particular contact. You can then go and verify the data, and you've got that verification attached in CAS 360. So there you go, identity verification inside CAS 360. A lot more of this will come. You'll see a lot more of this as the anticipated legislation evolves, I guess I'll say, around identity verification and the requirements of Australian accounting firms. But it's in CAS 360 in production today, and you can do it today. So if you are looking for an identity provider or a database of individuals, you will not have a more complete database of individuals than where your companies and trusts are, because that's where all the directors and shareholders and trustees and unit holders are. So you'll have a very complete set of data right there. So that's identity verification. I'll just check if there's any questions on those. My understanding is that you cannot keep the verification on your computers. I'm not 100% sure on that, Tracy. There are strict regulations about storage of that information. Yes, you do. But like, you can keep them in there. I would have to check that, but I certainly don't believe there's any issues with you making sure that information is stored and recorded. Okay, but yeah, we'll check that for you. But you are able to then run the verification. Obviously, we need the data in the system to run the verification. If you then want to delete it out, you can. All right, let's move on now to the next feature we've added in, which is minutes and resolutions improvements. We have added effective dates to all share and unit minutes and resolutions. So what we have done here is the ability for I suppose, enhancement of our minutes and resolutions related to both companies and trusts for those share and unit transactions. So if I go into my company, go into shareholders and prepare my minutes and resolution. So here is my directors meeting minute and resolution. Now this is before the change. So you can see I've got the shareholder details here, but I don't have any effective date. It's because I'm using my own template. But if I go back to the master template, some scrolling issues there. All right. That's what happens when you're at 150 Zoom. All right, save. And now if I have a look at my directors meeting minute, you'll now see that we have an effective date on that share transaction. So we did an update a while ago where we added effective dates to all of your address and officer changes. We now have added effective dates to all of your share and unit transactions as well. So again, just making those minutes and resolutions more and more complete. All right, a couple more features to go through, guys, and then I'll get to the 75 pending questions. All right, UI improvements. We've made a number of improvements to the UI around things like scrolling and sidebars and alignment and things like that. But the one that you may have noticed the most was the new debt alert UI. So we've improved the debt alert here. Okay, so you can see we've got an updated UI for the debt alert. We've also got a nice new feature showing you how old the debt is. So I mentioned before about due dates. We don't get due dates from ASIC. ASIC don't provide us with a due date for any fee. Okay, we make some guesses around the annual review date because that's a bit easier. But ASIC just give us company ABC owes $732. That's it. They don't give us anything else. So what we do is we obviously receive the invoice. So what we are now going to show you is how old the debt is in the debt alert. Okay, so you can see that there in the newly redesigned debt alert, and also in your debt listing report, your company debt listing report. When we export this out, you will have the last invoice received date in that particular report. So there you go. That is there. The next, or the one thing I will announce, I won't show this, but I will announce, for a long time, we've had issues with client first name and client first name only in digital signing email templates. That has been fixed. So that was fixed in August. So hopefully your client first name in digital signing emails is now showing perfectly correct, because it should be. All right. Next item I'm going to talk about is just beneficial owner merge fields in the company constitution. So for those of you that are providing your own company constitution in CAS 360, we've added 4 new beneficial owner merge fields in, which is good, and hopefully helps you complete any of those transactions or the constitutions with the beneficial owners. The next feature is that the company report now will support limited by guarantee companies. So you can sort of see a theme here with the limited by guarantee companies. Obviously, the company report had to be changed from members to guarantors. So now the company report will also show the limited by guarantee companies. The last feature I'm going to talk about is to do with your automatic debt reminders. So we have added an extra feature on our automatic debt reminders. And this is to own, and it's very important that I just sort of explain this one. This will only say, this is a new toggle to only send automatic debt reminders after the RA68 company debt report has been received for that day. What this prevents, and you can toggle this on, I believe it's off by default. Certainly if you are a bigger firm, I would suggest you turn this on, but anyone can turn it on. So what this feature is what we do with the debt reminder is we will verify the debt overnight. Unfortunately, due to batching and things like that, there can be changes to the debt balance at around 9 or 10 a.m., right? So it's all to do with timing, and we can check the debt overnight, and then the debt can change at maybe 10 a.m. So what sometimes happens is we check the debt overnight and we send the email at 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 a.m. And the debt balance might be, a certain amount. But then later that day, the ASIC accounts are updated, and we have a situation where the client's received an email overnight with a balance, but because of the late fee getting increased or an extra late fee being applied, the debt balance increases later that day. So in order to stop that particular timing issue more than anything, it's correct at the time of sending, but it's not correct a few hours later. What we've done is you can now toggle this option on, and the debt reminder will not be sent until after the batching has been done. So it won't be sent until 10, 11, 12 in the morning that day. Okay, so it does just affect the timing. We always verify the data before we send it to ASIC. Unfortunately, we're dealing with debts and it changes. So if you want to make sure that you don't have a situation where we're sending the email reminder overnight, we're sending it in business hours, then you can toggle this on. It doesn't make any changes to the feature. It just makes changes to when the reminders are being sent. So hopefully that explains it. That is the end of the new features that I'll go through. Now let's have a look at some questions. All right. I'll go to the top. Can I send a bill for my wasted time to the government? You can certainly send it. They probably just won't pay it. What is the fine issued if they do not have a director ID by the 30th of November? As I mentioned, the fine can be up to 13,000. So there is no prescribed fine is the answer. There's no set fine. There are a certain amount of penalty, the way that they do these fines, penalty points that get applied. Yeah, that is the way that is handled. Is there any word about middle names with director ID? I sort of have addressed this one, so I probably won't touch it again. But as I mentioned, the director ID number will probably supersede names going forward. would letters from ABRS be sent to director's address or registered office address? Kerry, they are being sent to the directors and sometimes to the agent, but most likely being sent to the directors because that is the address that they have. Unfortunately, the view of the ABRS is that director ID is a requirement of the director, not of the agent. I and many others have been at pains to point out that the agent is the trusted person and the agent is the person that liaises with the director. Sometimes we get listened to, sometimes we don't. I recently received communication which states the SMSF Association recently confirmed that the ATO that this obligation to obtain a director ID also applies to any client who was a director on or before the 31st of October. I think we're sort of splitting hairs here. The situation is if the person's not going to be a director post the 30th of November 2022, so they're not going to be a director at all post November 30, 2022, they do not need a director ID. The legal requirement is for them to have a director ID by the 30th of November. Obviously, that means that they had to be a director before the 31st of October 2021. But if they're not going to be a director past November 2022, then they don't need a director ID. That's certainly my read of the legislation. And I think if we have a look at the ABRS website, that's pretty clear. But the director ID names are coming from MyGov and some are incorrect. We've been advised to reset the app and then correct updates. Yeah, I can't really give an answer to that. It's more of a MyGov ID sort of call. Hopefully, so what I've been told is that the new register will have the capacity for the person to have a separate name. The capacity to, but this is the new register. This is 2 years away. There's a long time between now and then. I think we've answered that one. Still on middle names here. When putting a director ID has been overwritten in CAS, but compare with ASIC shows the incorrect middle name. Yeah, again, I mean, we've sort of talked a fair bit about middle names and director IDs, and really we're going to be stuck in this holding pattern for 2 years at least until the new register comes in. So I would say it's always best to keep your data and the ASIC data as correct as possible. That's probably the best advice I can give. Okay, that one's okay. Is it possible to have a feature of BCC or CC for, say, the office manager of the client or the bookkeeper so that they are aware of what's happening to remind the directors? So if they are the billing contact, yeah, Emma, the best thing to do there would be to use the person as either a signing contact or a billing contact. That will mean that they are included in the emails, right? So if they're a signing contact, they'll be included in every email where the document requires to be signed. If you're using digital signing, it will CC them. If the email is a debt email, then you'll need a billing contact. So everything that needs a signature needs a signing contact. Everything that needs has a bill needs a debt contact. But you'll be able to customize those and send them to who you want. Can I show an example of editing? I might leave that one. I did show an example of editing the email templates. Editing the cover letter is very much similar. You just need to go to your document templates, look at your annual review cover letter options download, and it is a Microsoft Word document. So that's the best way to go there. Is there a way that we can use the name formatting? I did talk a bit about that. Can the font size be uppercase? Yes. Send us a log a support call if you want your font changed to uppercase or proper case. We can do that for you very easy. Being able to change the naming convention would save us time. We touched on that one. For an annual review, can we add an electronic signature to the ASIC invoice? Yep, we did touch on that one in the session. We've placed the details in our company and it does not show any details on the register of members. We'll have to get back to you there, Lena. That's probably a support call that we'd need to look into. Can I put a wish list in on the company debt reminder email to add the due date? I did answer that one. We just don't get the due dates, unfortunately. As part of the new system, I've been asking for due dates, so let's see what happens. For the director ID report and most of the CAS reports, can you please add more fields to filter by from the company contact list? We rely heavily on partner and manager fields. It's a good bit of feedback there. We'll see what we can do. We certainly use labels and things like that, but partner and manager fields are becoming very prominent. Any plan so we can attach an invoice when sending a review in place of current? It sticks in the email as an underlined invoice. Yeah, there's some plans, and we talked a bit about payments at RegTech, which will be coming soon. But certainly, yeah, invoicing around annual reviews and things like that, you'll see some changes. Certainly plans, and certainly more than plans. I think that we've actually got projects in flight. So, yeah. For non-share company registrations, can you please upload a constitution with the ASIC form when applying for the registration? You can't. It's a really weird process at the moment. You need to email the constitution to ASIC. You can't upload it via CAS 3. You can't lodge it to ASIC via CAS 360. Will that be more electronic lodgement of registered foreign companies? Will there be more electronic lodgement of registered foreign companies? The Form 490, we do prepare the Form 490, we don't lodge it. Leave that one with me. We'll have to see what we can do there. Is there any way to make editable ASIC forms to display director in alphabetical order like in desktop previously had? The directors are currently being displayed in a random order on Form 405s, which makes it very difficult to review if there are 10 plus directors. Good feedback, Nina. Leave that with us. Have you made the change available as to change addresses for entities that don't have? I did say that I was going to look into that for you, Liliana. I believe no, not at this stage. Are you saying that shareholder and ultimate holding company can be the same company? What is the ultimate holding relationship in that case? Yeah, so I mean, they can be. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But I mean, the holding, it comes down to the holding company and the structure. Yeah. So it depends how big the company structure is. So yeah. Question here, are you guys partnered with Now Infinity? No, we're a lot better than Now Infinity. Just added a CC to an ASIC annual review and sent through to DocuSign. The CC document comes up as the ABC email address and not with the name of the CC recipient. Such as Dear John, is there a solution for this? That's a good point. We'll have to have a look at that and how we're sending that across, but yep, we can fix the addresses there for the CC. When RA incorporating a new company, we're keeping double up in CAS. If we had the directors already in our system for another company, is this issue going to be fixed? Melissa, if you are incorporating in CAS 360, you should be using the existing contacts. You shouldn't be adding new ones. Yeah, let me know if you're having some more complications with that. But certainly the whole idea of using CAS 360 as a database is that you're able to, utilize the director, the same contact record across multiple entities if you're required to. We certainly don't want you adding duplicates. Duplicates are the enemy of efficiency. You can quote that. All right. One to add to the wish list, we would like to a review style tab for the 388, 84, 82. Simply would like to be able to add in the year end and the company will pop up. Yeah, I'll have a look at that. We would prefer user as the contact on the form rather than partner, just to be different. Thanks, Anne. We'll see what we can do. We got into a lot of trouble with the partner one. All right, and the partner on as the contact person. Also in DocuSign, the subject is different from that of CAS. Yeah, we have got a bit of feedback about subjects for digital signing. DocuSign's not the only one. We're getting a bit of feedback about the Fuse sign subjects as well. So yeah, we are actively looking into that, the subjects that are being sent, and I think it's yeah, we would want to make it a little bit more specific to the company, maybe mentioning the company name. Why is there an expiry date for the director ID in the add function? That's a good point. The director ID never expires. Yeah, what is the merge field in the ASIC cover letter for the penalty amount? I will show you. So if you ever want to find out what the merge fields are, you need to go to the CAS dictionary. Why am I topic? So the CAS 360 dictionary here, this is where all your merge fields are. And if you go to your annual review cover letter, you will see here are all of the beautiful merge fields. So yeah, a lot of name ones and things like that, but basically every document now has its own page. I remember when we were a bit smaller and we had one page that had all the merge fields. Now it's per document, but you can see here we've got there's the first late penalty. There will be one called ASIC balance in here. Just got to find it, but it will be in this particular page, showing you that outstanding amount. I can't find it in this session, but I'll keep going. But it will be in there. That's the best place to find it. All document reminders sent out to clients seem to be triggered when the email is sent to review. I did touch on that, Mark. To get the most out of the document reminders, it would be good to have a sign here sticker on the ASIC form. Yeah, I understand what you're saying there, Kathy. We've got a few issues. You can put the sign here sticker in, but it's not as nice. Certainly digital signing gets around it because digital signing does have the sign here stickers. We do have an article in the help about sign here stickers on minutes and resolutions. ASIC forms is a little bit more dicey. Can you send a reminder to the document? We did touch on that in the call. In the main session, does it add the partner and manager if we have them set up and we have activated the CC? It won't add them. You do need to add the partner and manager yourself through the system, okay? We can add them in bulk as well if you like. For you, if you can send through the details, we'll have a look. Auto reminders, would it be possible to add auto reminders to send after the due date? I did touch on that. We do send them, we do aim to send them before the due date. We don't send them after the due date. There's a couple of questions there, but we use the due date as like the last date. Like we don't want to be sending anything after the due date. I understand that they still need to be signed, but we're trying to prevent the fine, I suppose, is the best way I can sort of explain that. Does other document reminder cover docs that have a due date but are now overdue? No, does not. We don't, as I said, we don't have reminders for the overdue, not yet anyway. There's a lot of questions obviously about them, but all of our reminders today are set up to stop the late fee. So they are set up for before the due date. But I understand that there's a theme here. Is it possible to set up a debt reminder to send prior to the due date instead of every 7 days? Again, just based on that, we don't have the logic of the due date. So it's hard, it's hard for us because we don't know the due date. So we can't say 7 days before the due date because we don't have a due date. That's why the feature's the way it is. Yeah, we are not given any reliable information about due dates. I've done 20 minutes of questions and there's still more unanswered than I have answered. All right, here we go. If you prepare a form 17 days before, I did touch on that one, did answer that one. If you have CC'd the account manager, the original 484 pack is included in the reminder. Not necessarily, so no. What if you have some companies that have an AR via email and some DocuSign? How will the document reminder work? Yeah, so if you've got split DocuSign or digital signing and non-digital signing, that's why we have both of the options. So if I go back to the settings here, when I've got the screen open, as you can see, it's now in order. You can see here you've got a digital signing reminder and a non-digital signing reminder. So the system's smart enough to know if you've sent it out digital signing or not, and the digital signing reminder will apply if you have, and it won't if you have not. Can we have billing contact added in? We include invoices with those documents. Okay, we'll see what we can do for that. That's not a bad idea, Amy. Thank you. Great work with the document reminders. Thank you. Can use it for really old docs. This hasn't been signed and returned, i.e. old annual statements that have passed. Again, just with that one, Sheen, we are focused on trying to get the penalties to not happen. So I understand that clients will ignore them. So yeah, there's still going to be a little bit of management for those late ones. But if the document is not yet late, hopefully you won't have to worry about it. But yes, we don't send them post the deadline. Maybe we should just send one every day after the deadline. It's the client's fault. If you've sent 6 reminders, they should get an email every day after the deadline. I remember I had to sign a legal, to waste everyone's time with the story, but I had to sign a legal document for a purchase, and the reminders I got were every day until I signed it. I signed it on the 4th day because I got sick of getting the reminders. All right. Changing the status to cancel doesn't get rid of the lodge button. No, if it's a digital signing document, make it void, Liliana, and that will get rid of it. With automatic debt reminders, can you not only have it to send with a number of days, because we have a debt reminder going out to clients that just received their ASIC review, but 2 days, but the due date is 2 months away. You need a choice of number of days before the due days of selection. So just with that one on Rhonda, there's a fair bit of logic that goes into sending the debt reminder around annual review. Questions keep going up. All right, so when it comes to sending out an annual review, first of all, CAS 360 does not send debt reminders for an unprocessed annual review. Okay, so if the annual review is not processed, is received but not processed, we do not send out debt reminders at all. There is a stop on them. When the annual review is processed, the debt counter gets reset to 0. So if you have 7 days in your debt reminder, like I do, got 7 days, when you send the annual review, your debt reminder gets reset to 0. Okay, and then on the 7th day, they will receive their first reminder. Hopefully that answers the question, but there's a lot of logic that goes into it that we had to put in. If we receive signed docs back and upload and put a status at signed by client, will this stop the reminder? Yes, it will. Are debt reminders sent if a client has signed the annual return but not paid the fee? Yes. So that's why we have 2. We have a document reminder for the document. We have a debt reminder for the debt. Okay. Are you going to change the ASIC debt reminder to allow us to set it up before payment date instead of automatically send every XX day? I think I've touched on that. We just can't do it because we don't have the due date. Certainly if we had better information, we can provide better features, but at the moment we don't. Can we stop debt reminders where advise that the ASIC payment has been scheduled? I did touch on that. The answer at this stage is no. Can we still send document reminder if overdue? Again, at this stage, no. What if you have 2 different agents set up in CAS? How do the reminders work if you want to send from a specific agent? Kylie, I guess the agents are essentially irrelevant in the reminder flow. We've got some clients that have got 8, 10 different agents. That the agent is more or less irrelevant in the reminder flow. What's important in the reminder flow for documents is obviously the label, and that will apply. That will have different things because you're able to filter labels. For debt though, there's no sort of way of, I suppose, splitting it up at all. It's certainly the agent information is certainly almost irrelevant from that reminder point of view. Can the automatic reminder be set up for director IDs? It's a good point. No, not at this stage. I certainly understand a desire to pester clients about director IDs, but at this stage we don't have director ID reminders, and I don't believe we will add automatic reminders for director IDs, and I don't believe we'll add them unless there's a law change. You said no overdue document reminders. Can you please implement this? We're starting to get a very big theme here. Again, our view is to try to stop the late fee. Like if we want to send the 6, I know that your clients are completely at fault if you've sent 6 reminders and they haven't got them back in time. But yeah, I understand. We'll see what we can do. We might just have a trailing reminder, but we'll see what we can do. Are we able to generate additional document deadline reminders where we would apply with selected labels? Not at this stage. It's either on or off for those labels. So not at this stage. How do you add sender to the list in document reminders? At this stage, you cannot, but it's maybe something we can put in. There's some information that I touched on around the ID. With the debt alert, if a company is in credit with ASIC, the pay button is grayed out. However, it shows a credit amount as a debit in that button. Okay, I'll have a look at that. Is there a way to have the document sent via view sign, fill the date when new client signed? Yes, Chantel, we do get that. And we've got a project there that that needs to be done. It's just, it's a lot of work. So yeah, we do want to add that. There's no doubt about that. Do BGL have a bulk deal for users with CloudCheck? Oh, not so much a bulk deal, but certainly mention to CloudCheck that you're coming from BGL. They might help you out. Certainly, I mean, it's their product, their price. So it's as much as we've built the integration, we don't really have a lot of control over price. Is it possible to have a breakdown of the ASIC overdue fees on the download ASIC invoice generated by CAS 360, as now it only shows the total amount owing? Yeah, again, this is all based on the data that we receive. So we receive a PDF with the breakdown, but we don't receive the data with the breakdown. And it's been a bugbear for a very long time. But suffice to say, we just don't have the data to be able to do that from ASIC. All right, I think we're getting through some of them here. Okay. The search field is consistently on the top right of the screen, except for the document search. Can this be changed? Well, the document search is a lot more powerful, Heather. So that's why it's in the middle, and that's why it's a big search. We did have it on the right, but we made it big because we added all the filters in an update not long ago. Can we move companies with an ASIC credit out of the debt alerts? Oh, well, Jen, they will come up as green, right? So if the company has a credit, if you go to your debt alert, the company has a credit, it will be green. So you can actually just then not click on it, and then you'll be able to filter by those companies with the debts. If they've got a credit, a debt reminder does not get sent. When and why do we have to verify identities? In Australia, you do not legally have to verify identities, although the TPB have suggested it. Make of that what you will. Auto debt reminder sent out to clients seem to be triggered when emails are sent to the reviewer, not reviewer sent to the client. I think, Mark, I sort of answered this before. When if we send an annual review out, that resets the alert reminder to 0. So then it will happen depending on the number of days after that. Hopefully we can customize the debt reminder. Yes, we'll put that in there. Are they sending out to every director address recorded with ASIC or the ATO? Liliana, in terms of the director ID, the letter, it is being sent out to the address that is on the ASIC record for the director. Purely because they won't have an ATO address, I don't believe. With the will the director be fined immediately? No. Well, I don't believe so at this stage. Yeah, I think we're just going to have to wait and see what happens on the 30th of November. Certainly those that don't have a director ID on the 30th of November are technically in breach. So whatever happens there, we might get an announcement soon, but I doubt it. What is the merge ASIC cover letter for the penalty amount? I did cover that. Check in the dictionary. Can the manager edit the template when reviewing? No, when you're doing the document review, the reviewer cannot change anything. They can approve or they can provide comments. I'm not able to send a support request. I just get a spinning mouse. That's not good, Joe. That should only be a connection issue, but what I'll do is just send through your support call through the feedback button. Yeah, Form 490 can be electronically lodged. So yes, that's good. I remember we did add some of these foreign forms in. Yeah, we won't be integrating with Now Infinity. Sorry, Melissa. It would be good when sending an email from CAS 360 to have the option to mark the email as high importance or urgent. Interesting. I'll have a look and see what we can do there about that. Not sure if that is something that's put into the email API. I'll have a look. I agree that the user should be the contact for ASIC forms, not the partner. Okay, interesting. When will CAS 360 integrate with PandaDocs? They're on our list, Sharon, so hopefully we can add them soon. I think Please Sign will be next for digital signing though. We would much prefer the user as contact person on each form, getting a lot of that. And you've started a trend. If a company is in the process of voluntary deregistration, so the 2-month period after you have lodged a 6010, does the director still need to get a director ID? Emma, I would say if they are going to be a director past the 30th of November, so if they are going to be a live director on the 1st of December, then they should get a director ID. If that company is going to be completely wiped from the register on the 29th of November, then they don't need a director ID. All right. The questions have stopped finally. All right, I've got a few more to go. Just wondering if there is going to be an option for separate PDF attachments when emailing the task from CAS 360 when not using digital signing instead of downloading, then adding to separate emails. Emma, so yeah, it's a good point. You can download into separate PDFs, but the PDF at this, or the email delivery at this stage, will merge the PDFs. If you could, send me an email or some feedback about some specifics of that, we'll have a look. One problem I've allowed with the alerts column on the company's list can get out of sync with ASIC website where the reviews did not download and subsequently were downloaded directly from the website and finalized. How do you update the list to reflect the true status of affairs of a company review completions? It's pretty basic, Peter. We've got a couple of, we connect to the ASIC mailbox and we verify that against the record that we have in CAS 360. So there can be some discrepancies, but certainly we try and make CAS 360 as consistent as possible with ASIC. But if something is changed on ASIC directly, it needs to be added to CAS 360. There's no real way around that. Okay, here we go. I'm a bit confused. The document reminders, there is a tab for annual review and it is set up as days before deadline. The deadline should be the due date for payment, but you don't have any of this information. Melissa, just to answer that question, the annual review needs to, or the solvency resolution needs to be signed within 60 days of the annual review being, of the annual review date. So we do have a day for that. So that's what we are using as the logic there. All right, can we have a partner field added to the director ID report? I thought it was there, Craig. If it's not there, let me see what we can do. Do 484s need to be lodged with ASIC for limited guarantee entities when a new member is added? Stretching my knowledge there, Catherine. I'd have to look into that for you. All right, last question. There we go, 12:35. All right, on the company selection screen, can I add a wish list to have the companies that have been deregistered shown in a different color, as was in the desktop version? Not a bad idea, I think. I remember, I think I was definitely in the team when we added those colors. The partner not being listed on the director ID report. Okay, we'll add that in. I thought it was there, but I'm getting comments saying that it's not. All right, that's it. Thank you all for coming along today, guys. All the questions have been answered, hopefully. Hopefully I've gone through them all, but thank you all for coming along today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the features, maybe learnt a little bit more from some of the questions that came through. How many questions have we got here? We got 167. So there we go. That's how many questions we've answered today. But thank you all for your time today, the hour and a half spent. I hope it was worthwhile. As I said, the session is recorded and it will be sent out to you in the next couple of days. And you can watch the replay. All right. Anyway, that's it for me, guys. Thank you all for coming along. We'll speak to you all very soon with the next update. Have a great day, guys. Bye for now.